بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته.
What is the permissibility of following from the Mus'haf in Tarawih, not in the first row?
Not in the first row. First question says, what is the permissibility of making Salat al-Tarawih following the Imam's recitation, holding the Mus'haf, but you're not in the first row? To keep things brief, with regards to the time, let alone someone who has memorized and has studied, oftentimes they're not on point with the rapidity and the velocity to fix the Imam when he needs to be fixed or when he forgets for someone to yaftah alayh. Sometimes you may have to correct the Imam, you're on the third row or the fourth row. So all of those details pertain to the answer. And Allah knows best. Fadda Abdullah.
For instance, I enter the masjid late and the Imam gives us salam already. There's someone, one of the followers still continuing the salah. Can I join in the salah with him?
Question says, I come to the masjid late. The Imam has finished the prayer. There's someone else who's late, but he was earlier than me. He's standing up making his rak'at that he missed out on. Can I join that person who's making those missed rak'at or not? General rule is that it's permissible to make congregation in a masjid in which the congregation has already been made. Scholars of Islam, they differ on the permissibility of making a second congregation in the masjid. They differ on that issue. There's a long-winded argument on that issue. I don't think that it's haram or bid'ah to make a second congregation in the masjid. That's first and foremost. Whether you're making the congregation together from the get-go or whether you join with someone who's finishing their missed rak'at. One problem is, or could possibly be, what if this person doesn't want to be the imam? What if he's unqualified to be an imam because of how he reads or recites or how he's dressed or whatever the case may be? You may disturb him. He may not want to be the imam at all. You stand next to him, you join in his salah. That could possibly be a type of oppression. Could possibly, I said. And not necessarily it is. Could possibly. You joining ranks with someone and he knows that he's going to be imam, that's a different story. But this person had the intention of praying behind the imam and not being the imam himself. And anyone who's ever traveled in the airport or overseas in Saudi or in any masjid, you lead the salah and it's only you and another brother. And 2 minutes go by and the next thing you know, it's 15 people behind you. You can feel their shadows over you. And if you're not normal or if you're not used to leading the salah, it's like, whoa, this is a heavy responsibility now. And it's only 15 people. Imagine it's 200 people. Imagine the Eid prayers, 800 people, 1,000 people. You're leading 5,000 people. That's a lot of responsibility. So everyone doesn't want to be with that responsibility, and that's rightfully so. Everyone isn't made to have that responsibility. So be mindful of that. But if you joint next to him and he allowed you to stay with him, perhaps inshallah ta'ala there's nothing wrong with that. Whereas he's making his own salah, you're joining his salah, he's his own imam. It's one way of looking at it. And another way of looking at it, one could possibly say, no, you're not to join the jama'ah with him because he had the intention of following the imam. He broke that when the imam salamed out. Let him finish his prayer by himself. And Allah knows best.
This was AA in St. Paul, Minnesota. Is it permissible for one to be watching the news or sports during iftar?
Question is it possible or permissible for a person to watch the news or to watch sports during iftar? When the iftar time comes, you should busy yourself with making dua. Beg Allah from His bounty and His mercy. Read the Mus'haf, recite the Quran, sit in a class, make istighfar, make dhikr. if you made a joke with your brother, a permissible joke, a permissible comment, la bas. You should busy yourself with utilizing this time. Watching sports, watching the news. Is it permissible to watch the news? Is it permissible to watch sports? Obviously, we know certain times it's clearly haram to do these things. Certain sports, certain types of sports, certain times in games, which is haram. For one reason or another. Watching the news, sometimes it's haram. For one reason or another, whether you're lusting over the anchor, lusting over the newsman or the news lady, the meteorologist. It's reality. It's reality. Some people watch the news only to see this man or this woman and lust over them. That's not the same as you watching the news without lustful intention. Or they're lying, and you're listening to lies, and you're supporting their ratings by them feeding you screened information, which oftentimes is just a lie in itself. So there's certain things in which watching the news or sports is haram, and there's certain times in which it isn't haram. It could be disliked, or it could just be permissible. And there are other times which may be mandatory. Getting the information, or whatever the case may be. Use the time for iftar for something which is more beneficial.
Initials K.A. Khalid from UK. May Allah preserve you, Sheikh. What did the Salaf mean by Amruha Kama Jad Bala Kayf? They mean tafweed. Please clarify.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. Question comes from the United Kingdom. What is the meaning of the statement of many of the Salaf al-Salih? Amurruha kama ja'at bila kayfin. Which means mention the Quran and the Sunnah, the verses and the hadiths that talk about Allah's attributes. Amurruha kama ja'at. Mention them, quote them. Bila kayf. Without how and why. This type of interpretation, and it really means that, and it really means that. What is the meaning of this? Does it mean tafweed? One of the most important principles for a student of knowledge, and for a Muslim, but specifically a student of knowledge, let alone a scholar, is critical and meticulous analysis. Critical and meticulous analysis is learning how to properly understand and learning how to properly break down. Because there's loads and loads and loads of information, swarms of information, books that fill this masjid easily. Buildings of books, all types of information. But how do you understand that information? How do you break it down? How do you analyze it? How do you understand it in light of the other statements? This is a major fork in the road between the way of the people of the Sunnah and the way of other foreign ideologies regarding Allah's names and attributes and other issues as well. So therefore, understanding what the Salaf al-Salih meant and how they spoke and who they were speaking to is critical for the talib al-ilm. Critical. It's mansha al-khata, yani. It's a major foundation of mistake among many people today, of all different groups and orientations, misinterpreting, misunderstanding different statements of the people of the past. So what they meant by that statement was, quote the ayat and the hadith about Allah's names and attributes as it is understood in the Arabic language, the clear language that Allah spoke to us via the Lugha al-Arabiya. It's clear what it means. Bila kayf. Yadullahi fawqa aydihim. Allah's yad is above their yads. Yani ni'mah, quwwah. It means Allah's blessing. It means Allah's favor. And they say, no, la, bila kayf. That's a false kayf. You're figuratively interpreting it. It doesn't really mean that. Allah says, yadullahi, bal yadahu mabsutatan. Bila kayf. Don't get into this figurative interpretation that these people are doing. That's what it means. That's what it means. Not that it has no meaning. And we're just deaf, dumb, and blind. We just recite. No, it doesn't mean that. Without the figurative interpretation, which is batil, the ta'wil, which is batil, which there's no proof for, or even if it is some type of proof that the word yad in the Arabic language could mean a blessing, but there's no durura, there's no hajat to that. That's what they mean by that. And it does not mean that they didn't understand what Allah said to them in the Quran, or what the Prophet ﷺ said to them in the Sunnah. Bila kayf, yani the kayfiyah. It doesn't mean that they didn't understand the meaning. So the tafweed, the word tafweed has different depictions. Sometimes the word tafweed is pertaining to the meaning. Allahu a'lam what this means. We don't know. And there are other times in which the word tafweed means, we understand what it means linguistically. We understand how the companions understood it, but the specifics of it we don't know. Bila kayf. That's in brief. Bikhtisarin shadid. It's a long lecture, and there are many books and lectures on the topic with regards to the proper understanding of these statements of the pious predecessors concerning Allah's names and attributes and other issues. Last but not least, there are many times which the Salaf al-Salih, certain things they wouldn't even interpret, period. And they meant it literally. Amiruha kama ja'at. Don't even get into that interpretation. And one of the most harmful things upon the Muslims and Islamic scholarship is listening to the people of falsehood and debating with them on their terms and arguing with them on their terms. We know oftentimes it was a necessity. Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah, he had to debate with these people in their philosophical way, using their terminology, meeting them on their ground and defeating them on their principles. But that's not always the case all of the time. And the early Muslims, they wouldn't even debate and argue with them. Read Imam al-Bukhari's chapter on Tawheed. He quotes the chapter, the correct view, and he brings the dalil. That's it. Khalas. Like it or love it, dislike it, you figure it out. This is what I believe regarding Allah's kalam, Allah's speech, the Quran, so on and so forth. That's the proof. Bang. That's it. There's no figurative, long-winded discussion of it. So there has to be detail on the issue. Wallahu alam.
Initials MR from UK. Is it permissible to get a hadith or hadith qudsi, print it on the canvas and put it on the wall, not for intentions like protection?
Question says, is it permissible to take a hadith or hadith qudsi and to print it on the wall, not for protection, but for other purposes? The people of knowledge, they generally say hanging certain verses on the wall and decorative formations or decorative forms is something which should be avoided. It should be avoided, whether it's haram or whether it's disliked. It shouldn't be done. As far as the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, then of course the rules that apply to the Quran don't always necessarily apply to the hadiths. And sometimes the ring is wider, and sometimes the ring is smaller, depending on the issue. So if a person hung up a quote, a hadith on the wall as a reminder, and it wasn't decorative, it wasn't in a fancy gold calligraphy type of style, or style of calligraphy, etc., perhaps it's permissible. And perhaps it may be different than hanging or putting the ayat of the Quran on the wall, in which many people they put on the wall is so majestically written that you can't read it. And it isn't there to be read, but it's there as artwork or decoration. And the people, they curse around it. They listen to things haram in front of it. They do things haram in front of it. They disrespect it. They have no value of it whatsoever. And their lives are not legislated whatsoever based off of Ayatul Kursi. Their aqidah is against Ayatul Kursi, and they have it hanging on the wall. That's problematic. And the same could also apply to certain things with regards to the hadith. So it's going to depend on what type of lifestyle you live. A classroom is not like a bedroom. A classroom is not like a bedroom. A bedroom, you're sitting, you're eating, you're talking with your wife, you're going to sleep, you're intimate with your wife. That's not like a classroom, in which the main purpose is for knowledge and dhikr and education. So there are details on the issue. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. Fadal.
Is it okay if we have a specific room, like this is our study room, to not decorate it fancy, but just to have everything around so you can remember it and be able to that?
Question says, is it okay to have a specific room that is our designated study room or our designated dhikr chamber, and which is not decorated, but there are certain things which are up and certain things which are presented for the purpose of being reminded and being in an educational state? La bas, as long as it's not going against no clear text or no clear principles like we just explained. poster. A student writes this out. Students practicing calligraphy, things like this. Things like this, notes, manuscripts. Hopefully it's not wrong with that. As long as you don't fall into the problem that we just previously mentioned. And that the chamber remains sacred. For studying, for prayer, for dhikr. Not to sit, to laugh, to joke, or to talk about haram, TV, things like this. And Allah knows best.
This was Zidu from Birmingham, UK. A Murtad died in my community, but they held a janazah. Is everyone who attended knowing his state sinful?
Question says, a Murtad died from my community. The people who went to the janazah of this apostate and they knew of his state, are they sinful? First and foremost, calling someone a Murtad is very dangerous. Walaikum salam, extremely dangerous. Are there Murtads? No question about that. Waliyadu billah. Allah has clearly mentioned in the Quran about people who make kufr and will make kufr. The Prophet has informed us in many hadiths how people go to sleep as a believer, wake up as a kafir. Waliyadu billah. There's no question about that. But to specifically point out and pick out someone and to call them a murtad and to decisively say they've apostated from Islam is dangerous. Some people clearly say, waliyadu billah, they're not Muslim anymore. And it's become a cultural trend. You may be driving, you see on the back of someone's pickup truck, infidel, waliyadu billah, kafir, or t-shirt or hoodie. This is real. If you don't see it in New York City, you go to other places, you'll see this. Tattoos, they'll take pride in it. Or this woman from Somalia, she tours the world talking about how she's no longer a Muslim. And she wrote a book. Or you go on YouTube and you'll see different forums, and discussions about ex-Muslims, Ex-Muslim Association of North America, to help out apostates, to harbor them, cultural, obviously, and social repercussions of not being a Muslim anymore. And the sad thing about it, we're not talking about nobody specific, but in general, there lies no doubt. There are many people who have doubts about Islam. And they would leave Islam if it wasn't for the social repercussions. There's no question about that. That's dangerous. We all have to check our iman. I'm not talking about nobody specifically. This is a reality. Some people, they barely believe, they barely practice, if that. And the only reason why they still say they're Muslim is because they know I want to catch H-E-L-L for my father, my cousin, my best friend, this one and that one. But if that wasn't the case, many of them will say, Islam doesn't make any sense to me, or it's like any other religion or movement. Waliyadu billah. So many people, when they leave Islam, they face major social repercussions. Not minor, but major. Everybody clear on this? So these people, they make these groups and these associations and these federations to protect them. You have to run away from home, get a job, go to school, find a boyfriend or a husband or whatever. This is a reality. But to point out someone and say this one was a murtad specifically is dangerous. It's dangerous. Are you sure this person's not a Muslim anymore? Did they clearly say, I'm not a Muslim? Or you didn't see them praying, took off her hijab, he hangs out with Christians, he has friends of this cultural association, this religion from West Africa, or whatever. Be careful. You never know what someone believes in their heart. You never know what someone is actually doing. Be careful. Be mindful of that. Okay? So that's very dangerous. As we've spoken on the issue of making salah and not making salah. Those who say that those who don't make salah are kuffar. That's very dangerous. And if you apply that to someone, you have to apply that to everyone. You know well that your father-in-law does not pray. Your wife's husband didn't pray from day one before you got married to her until now. He never prayed. You traveled with him, you slept over his house, he doesn't pray. But you say, Assalamu alaikum. And you wouldn't dare say to him, Wa alaikum. Or your own father, your own mother, you know she doesn't pray. You wouldn't tell her Wa alaikum. But this person, or this miskin person, or this brother Janasa, no, he didn't pray. Don't bring him to our masjid. He didn't pray. I'm not going to be careful and don't be hypocritical. It's very dangerous declaring someone not to be a Muslim. And we've explained this. The danger of saying that someone doesn't pray they're not a Muslim for not praying. Because that applies to what? Everybody that you know does not what? Pray. Including your family. Including the people that you're afraid of and scared of saying that you're a kafir. So be mindful of that. At the end of the day, for argument's sake, the person was a murtad, waliyadu billah. And they left Islam clearly. Going to the janazah is clearly problematic and clearly sinful. You're not supposed to pray over those who disbelieve in Allah in the last day, as Allah mentions in the Quran. However, let's ask ourselves the questions, Abu Sa'id. Ask ourselves the question. Is it even possible and feasible for someone to be an apostate And their apostasy to be clear and plain, and for them to have a janazah. Doesn't even make sense. Doesn't make any sense. Unless it goes back to the theory that I just mentioned. That it's a possible apostasy. You think or you feel he's an apostate because of this issue, because of that issue. But there is no clear-cut apostate that's going to do a janazah from the get-go. Someone who's a kafir clearly is not going to have a what? Janazah. Let alone the fact that the masses of Muslims are not going to what? Come to his janazah. If he says, I'm a Christian, I'm an atheist, I'm an agnostic, I'm a Hindu, I'm a this, I'm a that. That makes no sense. Proven that many issues of takfir and apostasy are issues of ijtihad. And which is not solid and concrete. And it can go more than one way. And this is why some of the scholars of Islam, such as Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab, some of them were quoted to have said, لا نكفر إلا في المجمع عليه. Some of them were quoted to have said, we only make takfir based off of issues of consensus. Consensus that this person isn't a Muslim anymore. It's dangerous to claim someone not to be a Muslim. Obviously, that's a very long discussion with regards to apostasy, with regards to takfir, with regards to a person leaving Islam. If you have doubt, then don't pray over that person. Period. Calling him a kafir and a murtad, dangerous. Are you going to brother Fulan's janazah? He says, I'm not going. Whether you frank or open or open, or whether you make an excuse, I have to work, or such and such or such and such. Huh? Abu Sayyid, khalas, don't worry about it. Leave it. Fadl, next question.
Initials F. Ali from London, UK. What is the ruling on making sajda prostration when scoring a soccer goal?
Question says, what is the ruling on making sajda when scoring a goal? I would say it's a good thing and a bad thing. A good thing and a bad thing. The concept of being Muslim, keeping your Islamic identity, being proud of being a Muslim and letting everyone know that you're Muslim, that's an excellent thing. Especially in a realm such as sports, soccer, in which is a great deal of pressure, mockery, a great deal of kufr and kafirin in that game and in that culture of sports and soccer. It takes a lot. Or baseball, or football, or anything else. Boxing takes a lot. To be a practicing Muslim with money, with wealth, with influence, the groupies, the women, the things, the fans that come with being a celebrity athlete. So that's a good thing. Maybe someone will be reminded of Allah by you making sajda. Maybe they'll have the guts to be proud of being a Muslim. See, he's a Muslim and he's not afraid of showing it, so let me be proud. And there are many Muslim youth that are, I tell you personally, are afraid of being recognized as Muslims. No matter how delusional you are as a parent. My son, your daughter or your son is scared of being recognized as being a Muslim when he goes to school, when he walks down the street, when he goes to the market, when he goes to play basketball. They're afraid. They don't want to be recognized as being Muslims or being Arabs. I'm Hispanic, Puerto Rican, Dominican. I'm not from Yemen. Huh? His name is Muhammad. Did he call himself what? Mo. This is a reality. But we change the name or misspelling this is real. So many people being insecure, being recognized as Muslims is a problem. And oftentimes the people that they look up to are athletes, sports heroes. So that's a good thing. Possibly being a bad thing, whereas being a part of sports and involved in sports and how you dress and the people that are around you, the kuffar and things like this, what can you do? You're making sujood. Is that a means of praising Allah or a means of mockery? You're praising Allah for scoring a goal in a game that was how long? How long is the soccer game? Hour and a half? 90 minutes. Did he make salat during the game? Is he traveling? Is his odor covered? He's standing singing the national anthem. He has a cross on his shirt, a dragon, this and that. All types of things that are blatant, sacrilegious things. And then he makes sujood. So, yani, Allahumma musta'an. It can go both ways. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala surely knows best. That will be our last question tonight. Walhamdulillahi rabbil alameen.